Hello Woolly Thistlers, it's Rachel from Barkland Croft here in Fair Isle. I'm really glad you enjoyed my previous video, and here's Meg enjoying seeing Seraph on screen, which was quite funny because this is her usual level of interest when there are sheep and sheepdogs on the screen. Thank you so much for all your kind comments. Hopefully I've answered all of the questions, although there were a couple that I said I'd address in this video, and I'm really sorry I ran out of time, but I promise I will answer those couple of questions in my next video for you. Well, it wouldn't be a Fair Isle postcard without an update on the weather. So over the past month we've enjoyed more rain, more fog, rain and fog, and I feel like I'm still dressing the same as I would throughout the winter. Even the animals have been spending most of their time indoors. Luckily there have been breaks in the weather, although sometimes it's been grabbing a quick half an hour of sunshine in between fronts coming over. We're now at the end of August, which means that the simmer dim, where we get nearly 24 hours of daylight, is thankfully long past, and we're finally able to start enjoying some beautiful sunsets again. One of my favourite things about this time of year is the return of the dark skies of the evening and being able to see the stars again. It's also really nice to watch the sunrise in a morning again. So to give you a quick update on the clipping, this is Violet having her first clip. We're now on the 31st of August and so far I've clipped 80 and I have 7 left to clip. So I've never clipped this late in the year, but we're thankfully almost there. And one of the important jobs I have is to sort the fleeces and skirt them, so take off any sort of messy bits before packing them to go to the mill. And it's important to have a good helper doing this job. So here's Tortuga, who seems to really enjoy helping me. This is Daisy, and on the 31st of July I found her stuck on her back in the field, which can be fatal for sheep. I turned her over, but she couldn't stand. So I took her up plenty of water and feed, and she was eating and drinking, which at least was a positive sign. Luckily, it was really good weather, so I wasn't too worried about her being in the field overnight, and I went and checked on her every couple of hours or so through the night, making sure she had water and hadn't tipped over again. Unfortunately, the next morning the weather had really changed and it was absolutely lashing down with rain. When I got to Daisy, she was soaking wet, she was cold, she still couldn't move or stand, and I was worried that she was hypothermic. I knew I had to get Daisy inside and into shelter as quickly as possible, but she weighs more than I do and is too big to fit in the wheelbarrow, so I had to get creative. I wrapped her in towels and a waterproof jacket and managed to get her onto a heavy-duty plastic sack on a couple of old sleeping bags for padding, and then I had to basically drag the sack and Daisy about 500 metres down the fields and into the byre, which took about an hour. And sadly, despite several people driving by and slowing down to see what I was doing, no one bothered offering to help. She was finally in though, and I got her dried off and warmed up, and over the next few days she had several mineral tonics and plenty of food and water, treats from the garden, and Bluebell the hen liked to go in and keep her company. She still couldn't stand up or walk, but when the weather was good, I'd get her outside and hope that the fresh air and sunshine would work its magic. After 10 days of daily physio sessions on her legs, she was finally able to stand up and take a few steps by herself, which was absolutely wonderful to see. And when I did my morning checks on the 13th of August, this is what greeted me.
What have you got there, Daisy? Who's this? Who's this? Hello.
Over the next few days, Daisy's mobility improved and she was soon able to go outside by herself and walk round the garden and stand up to feed little Mungo, who previously had become quite adept at nuzzling in while Mum was lying down. Despite Mungo being born a week early, this marked the start of all the lambs arriving from when next door's ram escaped in March. Next to Lamb was Annie, who had a big baby girl, then Snowball, who had twin boys. Bluebell then had this big baby boy and needed quite a bit of help getting him out. Unfortunately, when he came out, he wasn't breathing, wasn't responsive at all, but with a lot of rubbing and a bit of praying as well, thankfully he eventually took a big gasp of air and came good, and Mum was certainly very pleased to see that and has been a really attentive mum to him. Butterscotch then had twin girls, and they kept hiding in her feed bucket. And then Tilda and Lorenzo each had a girl and a boy. A spate of settled, if not particularly warm weather meant the lambs could enjoy some sunbathing and Mungo could give his mum some back rubs. There's a strict hierarchy of when different people get their silage fields cut, and mine are always left till last. So by the second half of August, I was worrying that they were never going to get cut, but thankfully they did. Once the grass has been cut, it's typically left for a day to dry, and then it's woofled by this machine here, which kind of tosses it up and turns it over so that the wet underside gets a chance to dry as well. Unfortunately, I got told that they weren't going to woofle my top two fields, so out came the hay rake and I had to spend 3 hours turning it by hand. You can certainly see the difference though between the grass that has had a day to dry and then the bright green of the grass that I've just turned over that's still wet. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at what's been happening on the croft in August, and I'll leave you with a couple of minutes of the lambs being very cheeky and very funny and hopefully give you a big smile. See you next month. Bye bye.